Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Anthony is in Orpington. Anthony, why do we feel so different about this next one?
Well, I feel that you're unfair to blame the government all the time for the rise in infections.
Okay.
You can see from the data of these infections that these are invariably people aged between 18 and 25, 30. And it's the student population and the people who went to the raves and the people on the beaches who have spread this virus.
Yes.
And to blame the government, I think, is shameless.
So who could have stopped them from going to the... Who could have stopped them going...
praying that there'll be more infections than deaths, so that you can continue blaming the government.
Okay.
You should
well,
do
that's
your
libelous.
level best to support the actions
that's
taken
libelous,
and encouraging
Anthony.
listeners to do the same.
That's libelous and disgusting, so I'll let it pass, because obviously the emotion are running high.
Exactly the same
Whose job would it have been...
tackling the virus,
yes.
You would be sat there singing his praises.
For the first time ever?
Did you hear that?
Yes, you said I'd be singing Corbyn's praises, and I said, for the first time ever, with a question mark at the end of it.
You see, I think when you blame the government, what happens is you end up with the listeners sort of going against you.
Okay.
I mean, this happened with Brexit. When people were phoning in to explain their point of view that mass immigration to an overcrowded country
yes,
imposed
Anthony.
a huge burden on the
I'm going to pause you, Anthony, and I'm going to ask you a simple question.
No,
Anthony, you have to let me speak, Anthony.
Racist,
yes,
and then started
and here you are.
them.
Here you are.
Your best to make people feel inferior, just to try to fill your own ego with the delusion that you could force your misguided beliefs on listeners.
Yes.
Little did you know that many of us,
you're reading this, aren't you?
By doing that, made us more determined than ever to vote for Brexit.
I think we should all vote for breakfast, Anthony. Philip's in Shoreditch. Philip, talk to me about the second lockdown.
Richard is in Ely. What do you think the Prime Minister's up to, Richard?
James, as far as I'm concerned, the Prime Minister is trying to get us the best possible deal that is physically possible at this time, with 27 enemies fighting against us. That's what I believe.
Bless. Oh.
Oh, bless, because I must be stupid, mustn't I, for believing this?
I don't think you're stupid, Richard. Don't put words into my mouth.
No,
I feel very
James,
sorry for you. When they said we hold all the cards, when they said we hold all the cards, what did they mean?
We hold all the economic cards, is what they were saying. That's what they were saying, and they're saying the German car industry and so on would come running. Evidently, that is not the case until pressure is put upon them. But all I've rung in to say, James, is it must be very hard for you. Everything you've ever believed in, the British public have rejected.
What do I believe in that the British public have rejected, Richard?
They've rejected in a federal Europe. They've rejected in...
who said I believe in a federal Europe, Richard?
Well, for the last 5 years, you've done nothing but. Have you? You've called anybody that's basically voted against...
No, I've never called anybody stupid, Richard. You mustn't tell lies, because when you lie about me, you lie to yourself.
No, I'm not being stupid. The way you've ridiculed
So what happened? I'm not ridiculing anybody, Richard. If you feel silly, that's not my fault.
No. For 5 years, you have ridiculed...
Well, it's 4 for a start, but that's not me ridiculing you. That's just me counting.
You did it in 2015. You did this
No, I didn't, mate. I was observing scrupulous impartiality before the referendum, because I worked for the BBC. But why, Richard, have you rung in on a day of enormous... Yes, I wrote the book 2 years ago, Richard. So why then, on an enormous day for Britain, have you phoned LBC to talk about James O'Brien?
Because for the last 5 years, you have done nothing but to ridicule the people that have voted against us. I've
predicted what was going to happen, Richard, and I've just been proved right.
James, the last thing I'm going to say is you call yourself a Christian, you come online, you abuse, you belittle people, and at the end of the day...
I'm not belittling anyone, Richard. You've insulted me 6, 7 times in the course of this conversation, and all I've said to you is that I feel sorry for you, and I still do, but God bless you, my brother. It's 12:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. There it is. That's all that's left now. Start attacking people, because... They're right.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, Sheila.
You don't think a lockdown is the answer short term?
No, Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, Sheila. And the same thing about Mark Drakeford with his political grandstanding. And no doubt will we hear from Nicola Sturgeon at the end of the week. Look, if these countries want to go their own way and cripple their economies and put them back to the Stone Age, let them go ahead and do it.
Adam, why do you think it's political grandstanding? I mean, you can disagree with them, you can find fault with what they say, you can critique it, whatever. But do you honestly believe that all of our politicians are just swanning around political grandstanding as people die? I mean, I've met some humdingers in my time, but even I don't believe that.
Well, I do believe it, Sheila, which is why we live in a free country called the United Kingdom. We have an expression to change our viewpoints, and we can disagree with people. And thank God we live in this country.
Absolutely.
Getting back to your point, Sheila.
But disagreeing, no, hang on. You're mischaracterising what I just said. Disagreeing with someone and thinking they're doing the wrong thing isn't the same as thinking that they blithely are using the deaths of many thousands for political gain. Those two are very different things.
Well, let me ask you this question, Sheila. Do you believe that Andy Burnham is right in demanding money with menaces from the UK government before he accepts their Tier 3 restrictions? Because as far as I can remember, it is a criminal offence and a crime to that. And he is grandstanding on a scale, playing with people's lives. Now, let's get back to the point at hand. I'm sorry to digress.
No, you asked me a question and I'd like to answer it. I don't think he is demanding money with menaces. I think he's doing two things. I think he is saying reasonably, and by the way, it isn't just Andy Burnham. It's Andy Burnham plus multiple local council leaders plus multiple Conservative MPs from the area. So let's make that clear. I don't think he's demanding money with menaces. He's doing two things. He's saying we've been in Tier 2 for 3 months. What has it achieved? Where is the evidence that Tier 3 will achieve any better? And if you're putting us into Tier 3 and forcing businesses to close, you cannot put people into poverty pay. Perfectly reasonable position.
Sheila, let's call it for what it is. Fire break, circuit breaker, call it what you will, it's a lockdown in all but name. And incidentally, it will no way be 17 days. I can say this with a reasonable amount of certainty that these lockdowns that any government in the United Kingdom are going to propose in the next couple of weeks are going to do nothing more than kill the United Kingdom economy. Sheila, we are already 500...
Well, instead of another few thousand people?
Oh, they're going to die anyway. Let them...
Oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you, Adam. Adam in Westminster. Won't be taking any public health advice from him anytime soon.
Peter is in South Tyneside. Welcome, Peter. Who are you listening to, local or national politicians?
Hi, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, great. Yeah, I can. I listen to national advice still. Because, to be honest, we've had a Labour government a Labour council in our area for such a long time. There's like a joke in the area, you know, you put a monkey up and it would get voted in over anybody else because it's Labour. So I just think, that being the case, do I really listen to advice from the monkey? You know, not being too harsh there, but, you know, end of the day, Boris Johnson was voted into a position for a reason. And people up here just won't vote for anyone else, regardless of, apart from Labour, because of the mining strikes and all that kind of thing.
And Peter, is your antipathy towards the local leaders, is it based on anything to do with what they've done on COVID?
No, it's because it's Labour, and it's because of the fact that in our area, especially, there's a bit of a confusion between the class system, if you like, and when they talk about money to help people all the time, these things, you know, it really knocks me because I have a business, I work hard, all my friends are hard-working people also, and there's this grey area between, they seem to get us confused, the working class with what I call the underclass. Up here, we have a massive amount of people who sit in their backsides, do nothing, have a million different children to whoever they have them to, they don't pay a penny of anything, they don't work a day in their life, and they get put in the same box as us. And this is by the councils that you're not helped up here if you're a working person. You don't, and I voted Conservative.
Let's have this happy person in Westminster. Hello, Adam.
Well, anything but happy, Nick. Good evening. I am just, my brain has exploded, quite frankly, with the amount of rules that this government and the London Mayor, I don't know whether I'm coming or going or whether I should dissect myself into different pieces, different people at different time. And let me tell you this for nothing, Nick. There's a fantastic bagel shop and kebab in Temple Fortune where I used to meet my brethren and have a chill-out session. Now it's more like a rugby scrum. You can't get the kebab. The people outside are absolutely bonkers. I'm having to go into a field which is just down the road next to the North Circle where there's a few horses running around. As long as you don't get your feet in the manure, is that a safe place for meeting? It's not considered a garden. That's what I want to know,
I've
Nick.
got absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Something about horses. He's in a field having a bagel. Right. Well, it makes as much sense as anything else that's happening right now.
Naz is in Bedford. Naz, did the party get it right yesterday?
Good morning, James. Unfortunately, the Labour Party, and especially Keir Starmer, has got it completely wrong. Jeremy Corbyn has been a long, upstanding member of the Labour Party. His support for the Palestinian people has unfortunately got him into this mess.
So Jeremy Corbyn's support for Palestinian people is the reason why Ken Livingstone harassed a Jewish person?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about Jeremy Corbyn, not Ken Livingstone.
I'm talking about the report that was published yesterday and Jeremy Corbyn's response to it being the reason for his suspension, Naz. I thought that was clear.
That's very clear. But, James, in the report, how many people has he actually highlighted that says they have actually committed I believe, from my understanding, I think it's only 2 people that they've highlighted.
Sorry, how many people is the defendant accused of murdering? Oh, it's only 2, Your Honour. Oh, well, in that case, let him go free now.
James, out of the millions members of the Labour Party, okay, hence why Jeremy Corbyn's comments about the report being overstated.
No, he didn't. He didn't say the report was overstated. I'm sorry, Naz. This isn't a pleasant experience for you or for me, but that's not true either. No. He said the problem of anti-Semitism was dramatically overstated by our opponents inside and outside the party. No one claimed. Good grief! If he'd claimed that the report was overstated, his feet wouldn't have touched the ground, Naz.
James, all I say to you is there's a video being released by Chris Williamson, a colleague of Jeremy Corbyn.
That, I think, is the point at which we probably part company, isn't it?
No.
Okay,
James,
okay. So this line here, overstated for political reasons. It was made clear to him that if he claimed that the issue had been in any way inflated, if he challenged the report and tried to make it about himself, there would be a problem. Why couldn't he just remove that one paragraph? Do you think, Naz?
James,
No, you didn't hear my question. You didn't tell me what my question was.
James,
no. Tell me what question I just asked you.
I understand the question. But
what was it? What was the question? No, I don't want the comment. I want the answer. What was the question I just asked you?
One
what was the question I just asked you?
If you ask me, one comment.
No, mate, you can do the comment after you've told me what question I just asked you.
Just because Jeremy
what
is
question did I just ask you?
People,
and there we go. You can't even hear me, Naz. You've got your fingers wedged so far into your ears. You're on live on national radio talking to another human being who asked you a really straightforward question around which this entire programme is built, and you didn't even hear it, did you? I'll give you one more go. What question did I ask you?
The discussion that needs to be had is being
anti-Israel. You take care, all right? I mean it. And when you get those fingers out of your ears, I will still be here, all right? 0345 606 0973. The question was... And I wonder whether Naz is the only person listening to this programme who needs me to tell them what question I just asked him. Incredibly, when you think about it, every other person listening knows what I just asked him. The person on the other end of the phone, so buried in bias that he can't even hear the question being asked by the person he's just telephoned. Just got to get the lines out. Watch a Chris Williamson video. What about the Palestinian people? Mate, just answer the question. Why couldn't he leave that paragraph out? And every other syllable in. Every other sentence in. Just that paragraph. The scale of the problem was also dramatically overstated, which translates, for anybody who needs this pointing out, poor me, poor Jeremy. Let's go to James, who is in Manchester. James, take it from the top, my friend, because it's a big issue and it doesn't really lend itself to simplistic questions. So tell me why you picked up the phone.
Right. OK, so I'm not quite clear on what exactly were the views of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, but it seems...
We've moved on now.
Well, we were talking about Charlie Hebdo.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So when it comes to Charlie Hebdo,
yes,
it's free speech, but when it comes to the views of the Labour Party, it's anti-Semitic.
Mate, sit down.
What do you mean?
Well, you know Charlie Hebdo's not a person, right?
Yes, it's a magazine.
It's a
I'm
comic.
just wondering, is it
and
time that this stops?
who do you think is saying that Jeremy Corbyn shouldn't be allowed to speak?
Well, he's not really been allowed, has he? He's been chased down.
No. He's spoken and then he's been criticised. That's the other side of freedom of speech. You can say what you like and I can say what I like in response. So where is your conviction that Jeremy Corbyn's freedom of speech has been in some way curtailed or compromised? Where's that coming from, James?
Well, it seems to be...
it seems to be the example of Jeremy Corbyn being denied freedom of speech.
OK, so at the beginning, I did say I wasn't quite clear on his viewpoints when it comes to the anti-Semitic.
Well, you don't have to be
Hebdo,
completely clear. You just need to tell me where Jeremy Corbyn's freedom of speech has ever been threatened.
Well, he's gone from the Labour Party. He was hunted down by the press.
Yes. He's been expelled from or suspended from a political party. He's still allowed to say what he said yesterday as many times as he wants. So how is his freedom of speech being compromised or denied?
It just seems sometimes freedom of speech favours certain religions, but it doesn't favour others.
Go on. Which religions does it favour?
So with Charlie Hebdo,
yes,
they can put anything they want in their magazine.
Yes.
And Muslims are supposed to put up with it.
Yes. They can also put whatever they want about Christians. They've done a lot of stuff on Jesus. They could, if they wanted to depict Jeremy Corbyn in very unflattering terms. That's their freedom of speech, and we're free to complain. But the idea that we should be free to kill people in response to an expression, to a freedom of expression issue is daft. So
yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
I don't know what. I don't think either of us know what you are saying, and that's not an insult. As you said at the beginning, you weren't clear. You're trying to suggest that there is a comparison to be made between Jeremy Corbyn exercising his freedom of speech and facing consequences.
Well, what I was thinking is it's perhaps time that Charlie Hebdo were forced they were forced to stop printing these daft cartoons.
Well, they weren't. That was the attempt, but they came back stronger. They came back more committed to their cause.
Well, perhaps they should be closed down.
So you're opposed to freedom of speech?
Just like Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn hasn't been closed down, mate. He's still there.
He's been forced out, really.
He's a member of Parliament.
Yeah,
I mean, how much more freedom of speech can a human being have?
He's been closed down.
No, he's been suspended from the Labour Party.
Closed down.
All right, I sense that we're not going to meet in the middle on this one, and that's fine. But I think the first comment you made was probably the most pertinent. That you're not really clear about much.
Let's talk to Tommy in Glasgow. You're a Trump supporter, or you would vote for Trump if you had a vote in America?
Well, already at the start there, you're trying to put words into my mouth before I've even said hello to you, Sheila. Good to meet you anyway.
Do you know? Hang on. We've got off on the wrong footing. I'm just basing that on a little line. Hang on. I'm basing that on a little line that's been put on the page in front of me, so I know where you're coming from. Well, why don't we start again? Tom, how do you feel about Donald Trump?
Nice to meet your acquaintance.
You too.
I'll give a precursor. My mum's Irish, mother of my kids is African, so I know a little bit about history and vis-a-vis racism because I've studied it. And so when you look at many things regarding Trump, I'm not a supporter, I never voted him, but I can see he's been a good force as a president of the United States of America. So, and ergo, then yes, I want him to win because of what his history has done for the last 4 years.
Where do you think he's been good? Tell me how you think he's been good.
Well, then let's compare the records. Now, you talk about racism. In 1987 to 1995, Joe Biden sat head of the Supreme Judiciary Committee. Well, at the time, the policy was, and he at the time was calling them super predators, but the policy was 100-1 on crack cocaine to normal cocaine. And so the black community in America was totally decimated, what they call the so-called drug wars. And that's why many African Americans have not forgotten policy of Joe Biden when he was head of the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Check it out if you want. And then look at the other effects. I mean, he got defeated by Mike Dukakis in 1988. I mean, that automatically should have bar him anyway. But as a human being, I mean, you're quite, and obviously the reason why I was said that to you at the start there, Sheila, is because you're listed and quite able to and happy to do all a list of the problems you see in Donald Trump. He's nuts. Where's your I don't want to go down that alleyway, but where's your qualification on judging someone's, you know, he's a 74-year-old guy.
My eyes and my ears, Tommy, my eyes and my ears.
Right, okay, and so tell me why many Latinos are voting for him because of the policy they stopped.
I'll tell you, I can't speak for them as individuals, but they clearly interpret the man's behaviour and language and actions differently to me. That's all right, isn't it?
Right. Well, right, okay. Now, the racism in America, if you look at it, was founded on white man taking 30 million African, the Midway Passage, you know, the passage where they were throwing black people overboard. When the white man got there, 24 million natives who were living there died. You know, but then hey-ho, and then when you go there, Malcolm X...
Sorry, hang on. Tommy, I'm going to leave it there, Tommy. I have to leave it there because of timing. But my view of Donald Trump and his racism... Thank you for your call. My view of Donald Trump and his racism, and just his general demeanour generally, but specifically on his racism, it doesn't amount to me then thinking that everything that's happened in America before was perfect and every other president was perfect or every other policy was right. Of course not. America has been a divided, race-riven country since its inception, in fact. And in modern times, just for decade after decade after decade. You don't have to set that to one side or deny that to think that Donald Trump is not the answer to it. That's what I think. He isn't the answer to it. And he's been the cause, in my view, of deepening plenty of it in his time.
Sam's in Bracknell. Sam, what's going on?
Well, I wanted to call in, mostly because I could hear the arguments that you were making around obviously protecting the NHS, but I did feel that a certain degree of misrepresentation around the ideas around shielding the vulnerable and allowing more things to kind of continue as normal. And if you read things like the Great Barrington Declaration... Obviously... No, you don't read it?
No, I do read it. And what you need to do is go away and read all the signatories.
No, so what I'm trying to explain...
No, you need to read the signatories because anyone was allowed to sign that.
Anyone was allowed to sign it.
So Donald Duck's on there. Harold Shipman appears quite... If it's not funny, you're on national radio telling me that we should pay attention to it.
No.
Harold Shipman's on there.
Does that
Dr. Strangelove?
The original... But does that negate any of the arguments?
All right. No, you give me the central point that you think it makes then.
Yeah, so my argument was around... obviously, we're considering issues around COVID, but we do know that there are additional deaths that would be potentially caused through lockdown itself. And there have been lots of studies done, scientific studies done, on the impact of the original lockdown, which potentially led to increased suicides, mental health issues.
I don't think you were listening at the top of the programme, Sam, which is perhaps, not your fault. It's certainly not compulsory, but we did spend quite a lot of time explaining and indeed exhorting the importance of looking after our mental health. But the question that I need you to answer is, what happens to all the other medical conditions, whether physical or mental, if the massive majority of the NHS is taken up treating people with coronavirus?
Yeah, and I completely hear what you're saying. And having a look
then you can tell me.
No, so...
Well, please. What does it say in the Great Barrington Declaration? If the NHS is using up almost all of its capacity to deal with people that have coronavirus, what happens to everybody else with health concerns, whether physical or mental?
But the reality is that quite a lot of elective surgeries are already being cancelled out of fear that the hospitals will become overrun.
Not what doctors and nurses are telling me. Are you? Forgive me, I didn't check. Are you in the NHS?
I'm not, no.
No. So let's just finally, and I don't want to harry you, but you are dealing with death here and life. You know, it's really important, and you are citing a document that was. We've already been through who it was signed by. So what happens to all the physical and mental health conditions that need treatment and care if the NHS, because we haven't locked down, is absolutely inundated with coronavirus cases? Just your view, Sam. You don't need any expertise.
You know, I'm actually not advocating against the lockdown.
No, good. I just want to know what happens to all the people with the health concerns that you're mentioning if the NHS is inundated with coronavirus cases.
But the NHS should be let's face it, there are less flu cases this year than in previous years. So although coronavirus...
I mean, these are words, but they're not answers to my question. What happens to all the people that need treatment if the NHS is inundated with coronavirus cases?
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Well, no, it's not. You can't agree because it's a question. Can you just tell me what you think happens to them?
I'm agreeing with you that they would be in a difficult situation to be able to treat people other than those people with coronavirus, or unless, obviously, those people then would struggle to get treatment.
Struggle to get treatment? I guess, in a sense, we got there in the end, but I would urge you to go and read the signatories on the document that you cite, and also maybe look at the track record of some of the public figures in my profession and in politics that are also punting it into the public space to the exclusion of the government's own scientific advisors and indeed the independent sage. And of course, then you look at the comments made earlier today with regard to how many thousands of deaths could have been prevented if we'd gone into the circuit break when Sage first called for it. And I you know, my patience is almost infinite, but you need to do this for yourself, all right? You've got to stop getting this stuff off your Auntie Doris's Facebook page. You really do. James is in Liverpool. James, what would you like to say?
Hello. It was more to challenge what you said about, you know, sort of trying to compare climate change and, you know, anti-climate change scientists with anti-lockdown corona scientists. I don't think it's in the same remit at all.
Why not, mate?
Because epidemiology, public health, virology, immunity is not one consensus. It does not work like that.
Nor's climate science. That was my point.
Yeah, in that view, but climate change is much more sort of recorded, isn't it, between years and years and years.
Not necessarily the anthropocentric side of it. Until very, very recently, you wouldn't be able to talk about it without having to then invite somebody on to deny it.
Okay, I'm not saying I'm not talking about denial. I'm not talking about a denial. If we're trying to say that, if we take, I think it's Anita Guterres, is it? The one who's on the Great Barrington Declaration.
Who? Sorry, I think I genuinely didn't hear what you said then.
I can't think of the main lady from Oxford on the Great Barrington Declaration.
Sunetra Gupta, the zoologist.
Sorry, thanks for correcting me.
Yes. Professor of Theoretical Epidemiology at the Department of Zoology, University of Oxford.
So if you paint that lady with the same sort of rhetoric, then it doesn't seem very fair, because you're trying to say that those scientists have to be tarnished with your against this consensus, what you just said before.
But she is against the consensus.
How many people do you know personally that are within the consensus?
Well, all of Sage and all of Independent Sage.
People who are within the consensus.
Oh, mate, you asked me a question. I'm just going to answer it. As a layman, I point to the government scientific advisors, and then I point to the independent body set up to
who appoints a scientist for the government?
Yeah, but you asked me a question about where the consensus comes from. So independent Sage...
The consensus
James, you have to let me finish, because the independent Sage was... Independent Sage was set up precisely because of concerns that government Sage might be in the pocket of the government, and they are all part of the consensus with regard to lockdowns and circuit breakers.
But the WHO doesn't believe in lockdown, so in their opinion, that doesn't matter.
Well, you've moved the ball again now. The WHO hasn't gone on the record saying it doesn't believe in lockdowns. It's gone on the record saying nothing will succeed unless it is supported by test, trace and isolate. Now, if you've got brilliant test, trace and isolate in place, you can avoid some of the more severe lockdowns. But, you know, that's the scientific consensus, and you've got a problem with scientific consensus, or at least you did a minute ago.
I don't have a problem with scientific consensus.
Right.
I have a problem when people are highlighting that they must be wrong. That's what you more or less...
Not that they must be wrong, no, because that's what consensus means, isn't it? That's a majority view. I tell you what, if you listen to me, then you might not make quite as many mistakes about what it is you think I've said. No, he's off again. Go on, mate.
You're voicing to a lot of people what is wrong and what is right and who is right.
No, I'm not. I'm voicing consensus and then dissenting... No, you're off again. James, stop talking just for 1 minute, please, all right? Because you didn't understand what I said, and I think that's probably my fault rather than yours. So what you have in the context of consensus is a view that is supported by a massive majority of what we would call, for the sake of argument, qualified scientists. Now, you rightly point out that we will always be able to find a few who don't agree with the consensus and who dissent. Well, you've managed not to name one, James, because you couldn't remember her name, and now you're laughing at the idea that there aren't many. And now you're talking again rather than listening. So let me try again. You couldn't even name one, and now you're laughing at the idea that there aren't many of them. You see, now, in the old days, I'd be quiet and I'd insist that you now name 5 off the top of your head if suggesting that there aren't many of them is laughable. But I won't do that because it would be cruel.
People didn't know who Chris Whitty was or Patrick Vallance before.
But they do now, James.
So to tell me that I need to name people is not the point that I make.
I didn't say you had to name people. I said if you laugh at the idea that there aren't many of them, then you will be the one that ends up looking silly. So let me just finish, and then we can avoid these mistakes. No,
that's not the point I make. I'm not looking silly at all. I'm trying to say that it's unfair to state that you have a platform.
But nobody did they? Nobody did. This is the bit you didn't listen to 2 minutes ago, as opposed to the bit you didn't listen to 20 minutes ago. Consensus is a majority view. Citing people who disagree with the majority view is important. I normally at this point mention Thomas Kuhn's paradigm shifts because they explain this process better than anybody does. The point I made was that if, for the sake of argument, 90% of scientists qualified in the relevant field believe X and 10% believe Y, then the responsible thing for a media to do is to provide 10% of coverage to the people who believe Y and 90% to the people who believe X. If we treat them as if they are opposite and equal forces or balanced or equivalents, people like you end up on the radio doing what you just did.
Right, okay.
It's 12:15.
Dina is in Barnet. Hi, Dina. Whose side are you on in this election?
Well, I really don't think it matters whose side I'm on, because the press will go against whoever wins. Because the press, I think, has really accelerated the divide in this country, Britain, where I live, and also in America. In fact, in the whole Western world. The press is giving opinions for things they're supposed to report, but they don't. Even you said when you started this about Trump and you gave a clip of him talking and then you had a smear in your voice. I mean, the press doesn't do their job. They're supposed to report the news, not give opinions. What right has any other press to give opinions? What right do movie stars or dancers have rights to opinions when it comes to policies? Are they so educated? You get a job to report or to work on a radio station. Do you really know what's going on and what the people think and what's really good for the country? Because if you do, and why are we in the state we are in? It's not because Trump was elected in 2016.
No.
And it wasn't that we're in the state we're in because we elected for us to Brexit. And that took 3 years to get Boris Johnson in the position to perform a Brexit.
Dina, thank you.
I'll play you these words again, partly because I'm hoping I might calm down and conclude that they are not as dangerous or as sinister as they first appeared. I think that's unlikely, frankly. I've heard it 5 or 6 times now, and if anything, it gets a little bit more Hunger Games every time.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
Why not? 0345 606 0973. That's democracy, mate. You count the votes. Why don't you want them counted? Paul's in Lewis. Paul, what do you reckon?
Just listening to that last line there, James. He says he wants the voting to stop. I didn't actually hear him say he wanted the counting to stop.
Well, hang on, let me play it to you. Let me play it to you again, because he said we don't want to find votes at 4 o'clock in the morning and then count them, didn't he?
Exactly that, and I agree with that, because at the end of the day, so in our country, I know we're different, but we have a closing time of 10 o'clock at night. That's it. If you turn up at the polling station at 10:30, you can't vote.
Yes, that's what's happened there as well. Voting has closed. He's saying we shouldn't count votes anymore.
No. He's saying the voting should stop.
It has stopped.
Listen to him. So if the voting stopped, then count the votes. But
he said no. He said don't count the votes.
But did he not say earlier on that people will find votes at 4 o'clock in the morning? So if you suddenly found that your MP wasn't elected because somebody had found votes at 4 o'clock in the morning, I agree with what he's saying.
Why does 4 o'clock in the morning have anything to do with it? I don't care what time it is. I want all the votes. I want all the votes to be counted.
In the clip that you played, he said, "We don't want to suddenly find votes at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the voting should stop."
Yes.
He doesn't say the counting should stop. We know the counting in America, it takes forever sometimes. We know that.
Right.
The counting here takes forever. You know.
I mean, with the greatest of respect, I don't think you're making a lot of sense, and it's not your fault because, of course, you're analysing a man who arguably made even less sense. But he said that he'd won the election already, and he said that it was going to be a fraud was going to be undertaken to rob him of a victory that he's already achieved. Do you want to explain to me how that's accurate?
So if he believes that he's won the election, but then votes are suddenly found at 4 o'clock in the morning...
But he's losing at the moment.
He might be losing at the moment, but they're still counting in certain areas.
So how can he have won then?
If you look on any bookmaker's site, bookmakers have him down as a big favourite to win.
Yes, but how can he have already won if he's two? Well, they frequently get it wrong, actually.
Not this late in the day,
Paul, 224 to 213 at the moment on electoral college votes. Explain to me how the bloke on 213 has won.
Because of the areas that he knows he will win in. And you've only got to look at any of that. You've only got to look at any...
No. He wants to stop now. He says he's already won.
No.
On the counted votes, electoral... All right,
James, you're doing what you guys do all the time.
Yeah, go on.
You try and take pieces out of what's said.
No. Okay, you stay there, because I'd hate you to think that. Let's listen to it together again, all right? And I'll pause it at the relevant points.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people.
So who do you think is trying to disenfranchise?
Right, now carry on for the next line, because again, you're doing what I've said you're going to do.
Hey, I've literally just played you the... Okay, can we hear the next line as well? But then you need to tell me who's doing the disenfranchising, Paul, yeah?
Okay.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it.
Okay, so what's going on there then, Paul, mate?
So the bit about 4 o'clock in the morning doesn't appear on that, and it appears on every other one.
No, but we've played that 3 times already. He says we don't want them finding... Paul, we're gonna part as friends, I hope, mate. But come on, give yourself a shake.
Let's talk to Steve in Chelmsford first of all. Steve, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation. I'm listening to your callers, and all along, you see, people just don't get it, do they? Like back in 2016, I put a bet on Trump in the preliminaries. When he was up against other Republican candidates at 10-1, because the writing was on the wall then, and people just don't get it. And your caller, like obviously I won, but your caller, when he talks about free thinking, right, and how sort of almost implying that free thinking is a bad thing, it's almost like there's this assumption by the Democrats that people, Latinos or blacks, have to think a certain way, and like I think it was Biden actually made the comment, didn't he? If you don't vote for me, you're not black. You know.
When did he say that?
Do you remember that comment that he made?
I don't remember that. Did he?
Yeah.
That sounds extraordinarily clumsy. I can't imagine he would say that, would he?
Exactly. And extraordinary.
Well, did he?
Clumsy.
I don't know that he did. I'm sorry to doubt you, but I don't. I can't believe that he'd be stupid enough to say
researcher, that. He said that, and like it was just one of his clumsy moments again. But there's always been this assumption from the Democrats that if you're black or Latino, you've got to vote Democrat. But the thing with Trump is that it's not a black or white thing, or black or Latino thing, or whatever. It's about class. It's about going across all the classes, providing jobs, looking at the economy, which is what he was doing, and he was doing well before COVID struck. All the Americans that I've spoken to in my travels, they've always said that they don't mind him because he puts money in their back pockets. That was all about the economy. And COVID comes along, and obviously that's put the mockers on that to a certain extent. But you take COVID out the question, and he would have won this hands down, because it's all about money in the back pockets. So, you talk about the Latinos, like Biden, you're looking at like a bland, boring candidate, and they look at Trump, a businessman, someone that sort of like aspired. Obviously, he got a lot of money from his family, but there's aspirations for business.
All his money from his family, didn't he?
Yeah. However, like he's still gone on to like stamp his own authority, isn't he? And ultimately, Sheila, he's become president as a result. So, like, his family could have given him all the money in the world, but that doesn't guarantee him becoming president. So he must have played somewhere, mustn't he?
How would you feel if Biden wins? Because it's certainly possible that he'll win. We've got 6-7 states still to come, and he's looking good in a number of them.
But what are you looking at? You're looking at a guy who's 78, got cognitive decline. Listen to me.
Listen to me for a second, Steve. I've let you speak a lot. Listen to me for a minute. The age thing, they're both men in their 70s. Trump constantly talks absolute broken biscuits nonsense. And somehow you just sidestep that.
Well,
he told people to drink bleach for COVID, Steve. What would you be telling me now if Biden had done that?
Yeah, well, I would have said that, like, it's just one of the other clumsy things that he says. But to counter that, like,
drink
Trump
bleach.
comes across
Whoopsie, my mistake. Whoopsie doopsie, drink bleach. Come on, he's nuts.
But this is Trump's appeal. And what happens is that people brush all that aside because they see him as like a maverick, anti-establishment, like almost like Biden is establishment, and he's old school politics, and he's done 47 years. And as it's been said, what has he done in 47 years? Like, he's had ample opportunity to become president, but he hasn't. Like, and now he's saying that he's going to fix a broken system.
Well, there's more to being a politician in America or anywhere, but there's more to being a senator than becoming president. All kinds of work goes on in across both houses, and of course it does.
Fair enough, but
he's a legislator.
How many years? That's fair enough, but how many years has Biden been aspiring to be president? So, like, he's fit to be president for a very, very long time. However, what it comes down to is he's too old now. He's past it, and basically, what the Democrats
why
are
is he
looking
past it and Trump not? They're the same age essentially, bar a couple of years.
Well, yeah, but you can tell by their physical abilities. Like, Trump comes across as like a really strong, maverick kind of guy. That's just a strong guy. And
so you like your men alpha? You like alpha men in politics, do you?
Hang about, Sheila. Like I'm easy come, easy go. What I'm saying is that, like, Latinos and working class blacks, etc. Like, he appeals to them.
Oh, I know he does.
Because he's strong, and like all the polls and that again, like, people thought I was stupid putting a bet on him back in 2016 at 10-1. Well, lo and behold, I won, didn't I? The same with Brexit as well. Like, everyone thought that was going the other way, but sure enough, like, it didn't, because people like, people assume. And, like, the Democrats have assumed so much. And all the pollsters have got it wrong again, haven't they?
Not necessarily, because the counting isn't done. The counting isn't done, Steve. It's still entirely possible that Biden wins. It's possible that Trump will win, but it's entirely possible that Joe Biden will win.
Let's speak now to the Republican businesswoman, Randy Reid, who was a candidate to represent Nevada in Congress this year. Randy Reid, would you like to hear your president, Donald Trump, accepting the results that election watchers and poll has found?
Absolutely not. I completely agree with Trump that we need to get to the bottom of what's going on before he can accept, let alone concede the seat. I mean, to have an absolute stop in vote counting is completely unacceptable. But at the same time, the Democrats laid out the exact plan and we're just living it right now.
Sorry, I don't understand. You've heard Donald Trump in a tweet claim victory in Pennsylvania, which hasn't finished counting, victory in North Carolina, which hasn't finished counting, and victory in Michigan, which has been given to Joe Biden and the Democrats. Why is he doing that?
Because we look at what happened last night before the Democrats decided to put a stop in actual vote counting. Trump had a tremendous surge. They did the math and they realized that if Trump were to win those states, that he was going to surpass 270, and the Democrats
what vote
cannot
counting?
have that. There's no
What
way.
do you mean they stopped vote? They're still counting the votes. That's the whole point. They're still counting
they
a lot
put
of
halt
votes.
last night, but they stopped last night. There should have never been a process where one vote was stopped. They knew exactly what was going to happen. They knew the surge that was coming in with the mail-in votes, and they literally halted last night when they started to see Donald Trump surge in the numbers. They all stopped
I don't think
counting.
I even understand what you're saying. They've been counting the
physical
votes.
Counting. They stopped the physical counting in a few states, and it was completely unacceptable. They resumed again this morning. It should have never stopped. That's my
Right,
point.
so you think that delegitimizes the entire election, do you?
Well, the whole mail-in voting delegitimizes the entire voting process. We've never
So
had
mail-in
this
voting
surge
during a
of mail-in
pandemic
voting.
shouldn't have been allowed. Is that right?
I didn't say it shouldn't have been allowed. It shouldn't have been encouraged to the extent that it was. You have protests out there. You have these extreme riots. To think that you can't go into a voting booth 6 feet apart and do it safely, that we all have to emergency do a mail-in voting. It's been the Democrats' plan the entire time. Again, they laid it out for us. So the Republicans only
It's
have
been the
ourselves to
Democrats'
blame.
plan to encourage people to vote as safely
to
as
cheat.
they can. And you would have thought it
has
was the
nothing to do with
whole of
safety.
America's
It has
interest to
nothing
do
to do
that.
with safety. It has zero to
Right.
do with safety. Imagine the past 2 days, we haven't heard anything about COVID, have we? We haven't heard a thing about COVID. It's kind of ironic.
Well, we've been
I'm
counting
just saying,
the election results. Okay,
We have
let me
been,
just
but
put it to you.
COVID is a national, no, excuse me. COVID is a national pandemic, a worldwide pandemic.
Right.
We're having a surge in numbers. So we see polling booths are being shut down because of the surge in COVID numbers. But for the past 2 days, we literally have not heard one word about COVID. If that doesn't seem fishy, then people don't have their eyes open.
Okay. You will know better than me, I'm sure, that Donald Trump has spent the last 4 years undermining America's democratic systems, claiming he's won the popular vote against Hillary Clinton, calling for an entire investigation into voting which found no irregularity whatsoever. I wonder why you'd expect anyone to take this seriously rather than just to assume he's doing what he always does, which is stoking fear, undermining democracy, encouraging people to maybe cause trouble at voting booths, as we're starting to see in places like Detroit. Why would you stand by somebody who was doing that?
Well, because I think it's what the media wants you to believe. We've seen peaceful protests literally across the country for Donald Trump. When you have these major cities boarding up the retail units and restaurants, it's not because they're assuming that Trump supporters are automatically going to start rioting and start causing distress to these cities. We've seen it for over 100 days plus. It's all happening in democratically run cities. So when we're talking about stoking fear, you're talking about our national media that won't even play stories that show that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are corrupt, that they have literally sold out the American people. It's not even a theory at this point. We've debunked the entire Russian collusion. We've debunked so many different stories. It's hard to sit there and blame one bad orange man.
One president.
It just doesn't make sense.
Randy Reid, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
John's in Wallington. Hiya, John.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, before I say anything else, can I just say that woman that rang in said she was worried about Donald Trump's mental health. I think she's getting Donald Trump mixed up with Joe Biden. But the liberal establishment in America and the far left, this loose alliance, they hate Donald Trump so much, they're desperate to get him out of office. There's like a militancy about it, a desperation about it. And I would be surprised if there wasn't voter fraud.
Fine, that's fine. And you're right, people do want him out. They hate him. They really want him gone. They find him despicable. But if you're going to allege voter fraud, you really do have to provide some examples. And I am, the president has made his claims, and we've gone through those claims, the 5 key ones, one by one, and show them to be either deliberately spinning the truth, misinforming, or creating conspiracy theories around things like burst water pipes. He hasn't given any evidence.
No, but I think we should wait and see, because I think there may be evidence forthcoming. It's just, even if there has been fraud...
But how are they saying fraud, it's fraud, it's fraud, it's fraud, but the evidence is still to come?
Well, like the man said, they can't go through it all in 5 minutes. They've got to gather it
They
first,
just need one. Well, is there evidence or isn't there?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I would be surprised if there wasn't voter fraud. But just look at it this way. It's to what extent it's had an effect on the election. It may not have had a great effect on it, even if there has been fraud. Whereas, OK, he's lost. He can leave the White House with his head held high. He's a true American patriot. He kept every single one of his promises to the people that voted for him, and he never let them down.
No, that's not true.
And they have replaced a great president with somebody that I have serious concerns about their mental health for.
Well, listen, John, I was in a very privileged position of being able to meet President Trump and hear some of his conversations between him, his team, and the former Prime Minister of this country, Theresa May, to hear him behind closed doors, as it were. He hasn't kept all of his promises.
You say he hasn't?
No.
What ones hasn't he kept?
Tell me where Mexico paid for the wall.
He built the wall, didn't he?
I don't know that he's...
Give him another 4 years, Mexico will pay for that wall.
1, he hasn't built all of it. 2, Mexico hasn't paid for it.
He's shored up the borders. He's shored up them borders. You cannot deny that.
By not building all of the wall?
Well, he's built most of it.
Is most of it without Mexico paying enough of the promise kept?
Tom, give him another 4 years, the wall will be built.
All right, John, appreciate it. The wheels are coming off the Trump presidency, and they're coming off pretty spectacularly. Here's Paul in Liverpool. Hi, Paul.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the hysterical tone of that woman, the Democrat woman, and also the total lack of objectivity in this media reporting, the point you just made there, and your reporting in Washington. We've got an election here which has got no credibility. It's got no credibility because the Democrats have used the mail-in ballot system to twist the result on a massive scale. Okay. This is a novel occurrence in an American election. America's not a banana republic. Nope. You can't just steal an election in America.
But Paul, stop.
Yeah.
Before I let you run off with this, we're going to have to take this step by step, which is going to infuriate a lot of people, but we'll try it. So you talk about they have skewed the election by having mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
How have they skewed it by having people vote by mail, which is a process that happens every 4 years in the States anyway?
No, this is unique, the scale and the nature of the mail-in vote.
The scale of it, completely unique. You're right, but we're in a pandemic. That's why that was happening.
Now,
hang on. Scale does not answer your point.
Well, I'll go into the minutiae of it. I mean, for example, in Pennsylvania, the criteria was you had to sign your mail-in ballot, and yet it had to be verified, the postmark on it. Now, at the count, they took that criteria away. Your signature no longer has to match the signature you give to the Electoral Commission. So it was open to rampant fraud. Most of these ballots actually have not been signed. This is the problem, and they will not allow any scrutiny.
If that were the case, why is it that the courts threw that out when the Trump campaign brought that before them? Because they'd already decided before the election that those were going to be the rules. And Paul, and further to that, Paul, why is it that you think that that cannot be the case too? If that is the case, which I don't think it is, or at least it hasn't had sufficient legal challenge to not be the case, why is it the case that people could not vote for Donald Trump in that fashion? You seem to think that all mail-in ballots are for Biden.
Obviously, Donald Trump was ahead in these states. Was clearly ahead, and they slowed the process and stopped the counting, and then suddenly a huge amount of votes were found for Joe Biden, which is very suspicious, the way the nature of it happened.
Or they counted... Let me just, hang on, no, I'm going to stop you again, because you've got to take this sentence by sentence almost. They counted the mail-in ballots after they counted the election day votes. And you're absolutely right. The election day votes in some swing states came out massively for Trump. The mail-in ballots seem to have had much more Democrat weighting, and they counted them afterwards. So it was always going to be the case. And in fact, I think it was even Bernie Sanders who predicted before the election happened that we would be in a situation not too dissimilar from this, because the mail-in ballots would be counted second in some states and first in other states.
I think there's grounds for a criminal investigation into the way these mail-in ballots have been counted. Of really the state officials and the governors of these states. They've deliberately manufactured a situation which has allowed them to use vast numbers of illegal mail-in ballots. And it's got to be... I know, but we need a criminal investigation to establish the truth of that, Tom.
Is that the same in Arizona? Is it the same in Arizona?
No, Arizona's got a different system. It's in these key states. Once they realised Trump was going to win this election, suddenly they found a huge number of mail-in votes. It's very suspicious, the whole thing.
All right, Paul, we'll leave it there just because other people want to get on. Thank you. Richard's in Cardiff. Richard.
Yeah, hiya, Tom. I got to laugh the way that if any Republican says anything against what the norm is, it's a conspiracy. Anything a Democrat says is the truth. And you got to laugh at that Democratic woman. For the last 4 years, they have not accepted a result. It's been Russiagate, it's been Ukrainegate. They've tried to basically delegitimize the President of the United States. His query is what's going on in Pennsylvania and Georgia. Why were the counts stopped?
Because a pipe burst.
No, that was in Georgia.
Yep.
It was in a high county area, correct, and it was stopped for 4 hours. But why was the count stopped in basically Pennsylvania? Why was it stopped? Why was it stopped in North Carolina when we had 98% of it in? Why was it stopped?
Well, in North Carolina, just let me check on that, because in North Carolina, if they...
It was stopped.
So they've got it as 95% in with Trump, some sort of 60,000 ahead.
The AP is saying here it's 98% in. The Associated Press.
Yeah.
And they said even Biden has basically given up on North Carolina. But my query is with this. The President of the United States, if he believes even one vote is illegal, whether it was from deceased, whether it was manipulated, whatever, has the right under a democracy to take this to court. And the Biden campaign need to understand this, because Mrs. Hillary Clinton stood by while Jill Stein took basically Michigan to a basically recount. But if Donald Trump
they're allowed to do that. No, Richard, it's perfectly legitimate in the American system to have, in certain states they have
legal.
Yeah, they have parameters in which you can ask for a recount. You have to pay for it, and it costs millions of dollars.
If it's under 20,000,
Wisconsin being one of the examples that the Trump campaign have demanded a recount in. But let me come back to your first point here about you say that the Democrats did not accept the result.
They have not accepted the result.
And I'm going to I just want to pull you up on that, because it depends what we mean here by acceptance. in people's minds in the States, and I would guess in this country too, people don't believe that Trump is... they don't like Trump. They didn't want him to be president. They don't believe him to be their president. But what we're talking about now, Richard, is something much, much more fundamental than people's own feelings about a particular person in the White House. Let me finish. Because what we're talking about now is the genuine acceptance of a democratic result. And what has underpinned democracy in this country and democracy in the United States is the issue of losers' consent. So Hillary Clinton accepted the result by conceding to the President of the United States. Donald Trump doesn't look like a man who is going to do that.
When did she concede, Tom? 2 days later.
It wasn't 2 days later. It was not 2 days later.
And tell everybody to go home.
Yep, they went home on the night. She conceded later on, a few hours later. It was not 2 days later. Can I just ask you this one? I'm going to ask you this one last question. Simon Marks, your North American correspondent, who should actually change his name to the Democratic correspondent for the LBC. God, no, I'm going to say a fact. He has never got anything right that he's told you. You, as a media outlet, have got nothing right about this election. So what does that tell us about you and Simon Marks and all the posters? You're biased. You're more than welcome, Richard.
The result, we will see you in court.
Oh, Richard, you're more than welcome to your opinion. Oh, he's hung up. You're more than welcome to your opinion. I welcome your opinion. You don't like it? That's absolutely fine. No skin off my nose whatsoever. Do you realise how you sound? I mean, this is death spiralling here. Actually, you sound a bit like the President of the United States.
I know